Good Lord, it looks like half the video was without audio. All right, I apologize for that. I didn't have the microphone on, so please forgive me. Today we're going to be talking about discrimination, and again, I apologize for the lack of audio. I should have just looked at the comments and I would have known. So I'm going to give you guys a real quick update before we move into the video for discrimination. Uh, our newest rescue cat, many of you know, own 19 cats, and I rescue them. She's doing well, and we have a new issue with one of our big cats. He's been bitten and has got an infection, so I'm addressing that after the video today. All right, discrimination. We're going to be talking about federal regulation, federal code, state. We're going to talk about state and city ordinances, and we're going to talk about the different examples of what that might look like, who you should be contacting, what you should be saying, and in principle, some of the things you should not be doing. A lot of you like to include a lot of things in your case that are not relevant. Also, this is a live video as it stands now. So you can chat with me if you wish. I'll answer those questions as I can. You know, it's hard to break your train of thought when you're making a video. All right, so good morning, NY Candy. How are you? Tamaris King, how are you? We did fix that sound. Brooklyn, me, can't hear you. I did fix the sound. Thanks for reminding me. Tamaris King, back on. Good deal. NY Candy, discrimination, housing, finding apartments is bad. Yes, it is. And NY Candy says it with a voucher. All right, so let's get on to this. In principle, let's talk about first, HUD is your federal agency that receives federal funds. Those federal funds roll down to the housing authority. The housing authorities are owned and operated by county employees. You complaining to the housing authority about discrimination will yield you little, if not any result whatsoever. Okay? Housing authority and its employees usually are woefully undereducated in that area. They don't really handle it very well, and a lot of them just simply don't have the time. So you will probably get ignored, if not talked to pretty badly. Stepping up from the housing authority when filing discrimination cases, you guys need to understand the differences in the different types of discrimination. Many of you call discrimination when it's actually, in fact, harassment and other issues or denial of service. So we'll make those distinctions in this video as well. One of the things that I'll guide y'all to is I want you to make a record of this particular form. It's called the 903. And I'm going to link that up right now in the live video. This is for fair housing. That'll allow you to send it in. It is recommended calling more than actually making a record of actually filing a 903 form. So we discussed the housing authority. We discussed stepping that up to the people that fund the housing authority, which is HUD. And then the people at HUD answer to FHEO, which would be fair housing. Okay. That's like the federal police. They take this issue seriously. For those of you that are paranoid or suffer from schizophrenia and other issues that dilute your vision of the world and other things, HUD does not have a special agreement with the housing authority. They are not friends with the housing authority. HUD's job and also FHEO, it's their job to sue and enforce federal law on housing authority. Okay, when you get a voucher from a housing authority, HUD, it is from the housing authority. HUD regulates and it also administers federal code, federal regulation against housing authorities when they become rogue actors, which happens quite a bit. You Google housing authority in lawsuit by HUD, you'll come up with hundreds of results. There's lots of places HUD will throw housing authorities under the bus if you have a sufficient case. So who should you be speaking about that specifically? Well, if you have deep pockets, I would say contact an attorney. They'll be happy to bill you $300 an hour, and then you'll need, $5,000 to $10,000. I am another option to you because I am a consultant. I am not an attorney, just to be clear. But for most of you that are not rolling in cash and can't do it that way, then I or somebody like contacting legal aid could help you with your case. Now, let's make a distinction that 40% of 100%, 40% of all cases are from people that fundamentally have problems with their mental health and do not recognize the reality is they're actually the problem and not the housing authority. The other 60% seem to have a solid case, but would need to deliver factual cases. So let's talk about factual cases. And I assure you guys, I'm going to show you what you need to do. Just allow me to tell you the broad strokes of all this before we get in it. If you're looking from 3 tips and tricks from Sally, the cake maker on the other channel that also is an expert at fixing toilets today. She's an expert at fidget spinners on Monday. And then now she's written a book on Section 8. If you don't have time to listen through this long-winded video for me to actually explain it, you can watch Sally at the Cake Baking channel. She's now authored books and all kinds of bullshit, and she'll be happy to consult you, okay? Letting you guys know there are lots of fabulous options and lunatics making videos. All right, moving on from that. So, back to the discrimination part. Let's discuss in principle some of the concepts of that. So, housing authority vouchers are a rental subsidy funded by the federal government and administered by local agencies, better known as PIAs or PHAs, which are housing authorities. There's lots of acronyms involved in all of this. It's essentially the city's public housing authority. The vouchers covered at least a portion of the rent for low-income tenants that are living in privately owned housing. Now, privately owned, when somebody owns a private home, it's privately owned. When the housing authority owns it, when they not only issue the voucher, but they also become your landlord, we call that project-based housing, okay? So moving on from that, I want to talk about what discrimination looks like, and I want to talk about a lady that's actually a pretty good expert in the area. Her name is Erin Kimball. And so it goes on to say that landlords are not legally able to either to encourage or discourage members of protected classes from applying for apartments. Protected classes include identity categories like race, gender, religion. It also can include the gay, lesbian, and so on communities and many other religious sects as well, okay, for those of you that have religious principles. Landlords cannot outright deny the tenant because their source of income, and they cannot suggest or hint at that the tenant should apply either. The landlord is only supposed to say, yes, I take Section 8 and I give you your paperwork. And that's another thing that she was discussing. So one thing I want to bring up is a state Supreme Court ruling with Lopez versus Williams, Real Estate. This is a real estate company that owned a maintenance company. Well, subcontract to the maintenance company, decided that their agents weren't going to be held liable for discrimination, but after they had a finding that they received explicit instruction from the property owners to filter out tenants with certain income sources, that would be a form of discrimination. So, where can tenants report Section 8 discrimination? Well, in many cases, you can go to the Commission on Human Rights. They do tend to deal with that. FHEO, which is Fair Housing, and the Fair Housing Act to make sure there's compliance. Allegations of Section 8 discrimination can also be addressed by HUD specialists, and they have their own different number, which will bring you back to FHEO. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop for just a second and answer a few of these questions because they're rolling along good right now. All right. Tamaris King says, by the way, guys, this is live comments. Tamaris King says, program never gets back to me. That's not unusual. Most housing authorities are like that. You almost have to take your request, put it on a piece of paper, then wrap the paper around a brick and throw it through the window. Now, I'm not suggesting you should really do that, but that's just how hard it is to deal with housing authorities. Summers are impeccably a high point in the season where everybody wants something, you know. Nobody wants a voucher during Christmas. Nobody wants it in March. Nobody really wants it in November. So we all do the same thing the bees do. We only come out when it's blossoming. And that means that right now, this summer, about 90% of all housing authorities are closed. And then, of course, everybody's decided this is the very moment they love to address issues. And unfortunately, it's probably the worst time of year. It sucks, but that's the reality of it. So, NY Kenny says, I had to make a complaint to HUD, but they did not accept the complaint. You know, one of the distinctions there with HUD is you have to make sure you're filing your complaints with the right departments. HUD and also FHEO have different departments that address different issues. If you file with the wrong one, they won't actually help you figure out what the right one is. That's another tough thing about the feds. Brooklyn Me says, I complained to HUD. They sent it over to DCR. The office did nothing. Now, one thing that can be a bigger issue with you guys filing complaints to these different agencies is you're not actually backing your case with federal regulation or federal code. So instead, the conversation or filing may go along the lines of, well, you know what? I really can't stand that person. I believe they discriminated. I didn't like her attitude. No one time she don't answer the phone. Those are just complaints. If you don't back it and say, well, I was denied, the word denied is a big one. If you don't back it with an actual subsection, copying and pasting actual federal regulation, they denied me. Here's where it says Article 1 of dash 2234. Denial assistance is prevented by the federal code of regulation under Cornell law. So that's the problem, guys. You're putting in toilet paper requests and complaints, and you're bitching about how you feel. HUD and other federal agencies do not care about how you feel. What they care about is the facts of the case, and can you prove it? Is there evidence? Do you have a matter of record? Have you recorded on your phone, a camera, email? Phone conversations are worthless. There's no matter of record of that. So where is the evidence? Two, can you support your claim with a secondary issue? And that would be, have you identified under Title 24 what the actual title is they violated? So you see where the problem is? That's why you guys get your case shot down, because it goes along like, I think that I've been discriminated. I didn't like that woman's attitude. I don't appreciate them not picking up the phones. I have not only a case of harassment, discrimination, and other issues, but your claim becomes baseless because you don't have it wrapped up. Another thing is you'll tend to make these things into life stories. Well, this is how it started in 1921, and then 98,000 words later, you have annoyed and pissed off the people reading it. And now they frame up your complaint as basically she's got a loose screw. She has a loose screw. This is another Sally. Send her to the trash can. When she actually comes back to reality, in less than maybe 1,000 words, we'll discuss whether or not they have a case. Look, guys, I'm not trying to make fun of anybody. I'm just letting you know this is the perception from the other side you're not thinking about. If you guys don't know how to file claims in an adequate manner, you should hire an attorney, hire a consultant, or try to speak with a specialist that actually even has a minute or two time to help you wrap up your case in the appropriate way. You should be sending out demand letters. There should be tracking numbers. You guys are just not doing a very good job of presenting your case. You know, it's a lot like sitting in the courtroom and not being underrepresented. The reason you have lawyers is because people don't have time to read the entire law library. Okay. I made it a 21-year career to sit there and read through all passages of legislation, federal code, federal legislation. It doesn't mean that I understand it in the capacity an attorney does, but I can tell you that I've talked with a lot of attorneys, and they don't have the time either. And they often consult to me. They defer to me in certain aspects of the case. Another thing, attorneys usually don't want any kind of project that's not going to be a lawsuit to make them a lot of money. That's where a lot of you run into brick walls because it's not profitable to take your complaint to start with. That's why virtually no attorney wants to fool with it. And it's a sad reality, but it's true, okay? So you have to figure out what you want to do. But let me tell you, there are certain things when dealing with HUD and other agencies, this is not a DIY, okay? You're not going to do it yourself and get it right. It's just not going to work that way. You can try the preliminary complaints, but you really need to have a mind for it. Beyond that, Brooklyn, I complained to HUD. They sent it to the, okay, Goldsmith TV. I was approved for a place where property management did not turn in the packet in time, and I told my caseworker to find out what happens now. So that right there, that situation, if you were approved and see, did I turn my packet in time? So do you have a matter of record? Is there any evidence that you turned in on a certain date? So there's probably something that could be done in that respect, Goldsmith TV, but I probably would have to talk to you further to see. Goldsmith TV goes on to comment further in this live video. I'm about to expire June 1st. The property management has my package for over 2 weeks and turned it in and complete now. I'm not sure if my voucher expired or what. That should be the demand letter. You should be writing letters to the housing authority so they're forced to answer. Yeah. Jasmine Victoria, oh, good morning. How are you? I'm glad to see you. Been a minute, huh? Brooklyn 1, our housing authority is being sued presently. The chairman was replaced. Other people in the office were stealing. That's no surprise. Hey, guys, a good story about stealing. They hired a person to work at the housing authority for Houston, one of our sub offices. And in his first, so they found him probably on Craigslist, you know. The old Craigslist, you get somebody to come out and pay him a nickel an hour. And the first day in his little office, he starts selling vouchers for $5,000. This is what happens when you allow a housing authority to hire lunatics. He got caught. Now he's going to get what we call Section 9. Most of you know what Section 8 is. Let me explain what Section 9 is. Section 9 is when the federal government gives you free housing, free food, and free utilities. The bus will come by, pick you up, bring you to the court. Then they'll put you, and they'll give you some lovely set of jewelry. You'll get two bracelets. They connect together, and then they'll drive you down to the state penitentiary, federal penitentiary, and then they'll give you a 75% lease. So you'll get three hots and a cot in an 8-foot square, and then the government will pick up the bill. They'll pay your rent in that prison cell. So that worker there is now receiving Section 9 himself. I would recommend for most of you to stick with Section 8 because Section 9 is really, really tough. You could be there for years, and you never have to worry about renewing the lease. They just keep you for a while. All right, moving on. Tamara King says, all right. Tamara King also goes on to say, trying to do rent on my own. Okay. And then Brooklyn One says, can you rent to own with a voucher? Rent to own. Well, it's not really rent to own. It's the voucher would have been paying your rent. You're diverting the voucher to then pay your mortgage. So it would be, it'd be you in a home ownership program. Yeah, that would be the way to go. In my case, I fill out the complaint form. It wasn't the wrong one. Okay. Brooklyn One says, laughing out loud, and Regina Thomas says, hi. So, I'm talk to you about that Section 9. Anybody that's in a big hurry and needs a mythical voucher, you just have to walk in the bank and rob it. We'll get you Section 9 at the federal penitentiary, and then they'll give you a voucher there, okay? That's the fastest housing I know of. Look, they even give you a ride to jail. So, all right, so the 903 complaint is going to be for FHAO, and I'm going to give you all another copy of that for discrimination, and then we're going to talk about examples. Got that in there. All right. So let's give you the examples. So we're going to talk about 4 or 5 different examples and see what y'all think. So in the first case, John, who is a black man, speaks to a prospective landlord on the phone about leasing an apartment. On the phone, the landlord seems eager to rent to John, but John meets with the landlord in person about an application, and the landlord's attitude is entirely different. A few days later, John receives a letter saying that his application was denied because of a negative reference from his current landlord. John is surprised because he never had any problems with that particular prior landlord. And his landlord swears he was never contacted for the reference. John suspects that the real reason he was denied with the apartment is because he is black. So John files a complaint with HUD. HUD investigates, and it turns out John is right. The landlord's files show a pattern of discrimination because of race and color. Now, that's a primary. And one thing I want to tell you about discrimination based on color is this. It's one of the harder ones to prove, okay? That one has been beat to death quite a bit, and it requires a lot of records, okay? Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about a different case. Now we're going to talk about it in terms of religion. So Jane is a Muslim woman who wears a hijab. And Jane walks in the leasing office for a large apartment building because she saw no sign in the lobby building's window advertising several units. Jane introduces herself to the leasing officer, who immediately says there's no units available. Jane asks to be put on the waiting list, but she never receives a call. Jane files a complaint with HUD because she suspects that the leasing officer does not want to rent to her because she is Muslim. HUD investigated. It turns out Jane's right. Other employees of the building give HUD information that substantiates Jane's claims of religious discrimination. All right. Now we're going to talk about steering. John is an Asian man who meets with a real estate broker to discuss purchasing a housing for his family. When John names a neighborhood that he's interested in, the broker asks John if he's sure his family would feel comfortable there. The broker tells John that she has a wonderful listing in another neighborhood where there are more people like them. Pretty wretched little deal there, I got to tell you. When the broker takes John to see the house, John notices that the residents in the neighborhood appear to be mostly Asian. John files a complaint with HUD because that's called steering. Now that's a blaring example there, but it actually happens more often than you think. And we as humans tend to segregate ourselves, which is wild. I would think that if I lived in a neighborhood, I would like some diversity. I don't want everybody to be the same color. The thing about it is when you're in kindergarten, they give you a box of Crayolas. Did you want all your Crayolas to be one color? People have got to grow up and get over themselves. Jesus. All right. It's a big city. So, anyways, moving on. Um, Here's another example. John was a person with a disability who uses a wheelchair, who views a condominium. He is hoping to purchase the multi-story building, but when John arrives, he finds there are no accessible parking spaces in the parking lot. When John tries to enter the unit, the wheelchair can barely fit to the door. He bangs his arms on the way in, and inside the unit, thermostat switches are all up almost at the ceiling. The building has a fitness room which he cannot access, and so you see whether you hit that with discrimination, and then also that would be an ADA compliance issue. That would be rare. It would have to be an old building these days because by virtue of city code, you can't have buildings like that anymore. Reasonable accommodations. We'll talk about that one. Jane has several disabilities that affect her capacity to manage her own finances. Jane tells her building manager that her mother will be paying for rent for this reason and asks if all notices relating to her rent can be sent to her mother. The building manager tells Jane that the management company has a policy of only sending notices to residents, no exceptions. You cannot put no exceptions, period, when leasing, okay? If you're a landlord and you're saying no exceptions, that's not legally enforceable, and you're looking for a lot of trouble. Several months later, Jane receives an eviction notice because her mother had not known that Jane's rent was increased. Jane files a complaint with HUD because denying a reasonable accommodation is a form of discrimination. I want to go back to that, and I want to excise that one comment. Jane receives an eviction notice because her mother had not known that Jane's rent had been increased. Let's go back. Jane's rent had been increased. Jane files a complaint with HUD because denying a reasonable accommodation. A reasonable person would understand that comment there, reverse engineer it, and I think a lot of you would figure out how your rent increases might not be applicable. And that's all I'm going to say in that respect, okay? Sometimes when you look at laws, if you flip them around and you think in backwards terms, you understand if you can meet the obligation, then you have the case. Children. Let's talk about children. John has 3 children. John's building has a patio with a picnic table, and one day John's children decide to have lunch there with some of their friends. The next day, John receives a notice from the homeowners association informing that the building will say that the patio is for adult use only. Oh boy. And that he needs to make sure that his nasty little children do not violate the building's ridiculous rules anymore. John files a complaint and wins. You cannot dictate by age. Look, let me tell you something. That picnic there, that ain't a bar room. Okay? Unless you own a bar and you're serving liquor, then anybody can be there. So that's a few examples of discrimination. And these comments are flying again. All right, I'm just kind of skipping down here. Regina Thomas goes on to say, now I'm reading live comments. I heard the rent, even if it's every 6 months. What most of you fail to see or know is you have the ability to talk to your housing specialist to have your rent reevaluated, your voucher. So the landlord's doing it every 6 months in the year, but a lot of you guys, you've had these vouchers since 1981. How many times you actually ask for an increase? You might want to do that. Matter of fact, you really want to stay on the housing authority's ass about that, about every 6 months, because you should be asking for a raise before the landlord's asking to increase, okay? Look, a voucher doesn't just have to remain the same as you received it 25 years ago. You guys have got to get on the gas, get on there. Hey, look, you know what? A gallon of milk ain't the same price. We're going to discuss this voucher. This is nonsense. It's not enough. If you don't do that, look, they ain't going to feed you at the dinner table if you don't ask for nothing to eat, okay? It's not their job to remind you need more money. And the last thing the housing authority wants to do is say, hey, by the way, here's your monthly reminder to come and annoy us and ask for more cash. That's the point, guys. You got to get in there and get your business done. If you don't know to do that, then go do it. In my candy, I bookmarked it. Thanks. In my candy, everyone, rent's going up. God's child, True J. Yes, thank you. Finally, somebody thanking me this morning. Hey, guys, 600-700 videos. At some point, somebody's got to thank me for doing something here. So, look, guys, it's free, man. When you say thank you, it's definitely free. All right, I'm in a good mood today. So, In my Kenny says, hey, a resident community computer room and the computers aren't even updated. Well, you know, a slumlord is a slumlord. So if you're on dial up and you got bad computers in that computer room, as long as you can get your wheelchair in there, they can't make any further promises. If they tell you your children can't be in a computer room, then you got a case. Okay, so you might have to bait that landlord in that being a bad actor. Now, again, I'm not recommending anybody do anything illegal, but I think you'll understand. Beautiful Brown. All right, so we finally got a cool name today. So we have Beautiful Brown Baby. So that's an interesting name of the day. I had to file a complaint as well. They told me because I wasn't actually living on the street, I did not qualify for EHA. You know what, Beautiful Brown? What you're saying there, I believe you. And the accusation you're making against them and the people that denied you, that is the most absurd thing. The EHB was specifically designed for that reason. So the person who told you that is not only an idiot and has no conception of what the voucher's for. They also must presume that you're an idiot. I would fight that. I would fight that immediately. That would be an easy one to win. Beautiful Brown. That's boy, that worker there. Oh, there's so many ways to throw that worker under the bus. Moving on, Beautiful Brown goes on to say, what's the difference between mainstream vouchers and EHV? Well, let me rewrap that question for you and expand it. A voucher is always just a voucher. When you go into a housing authority and you get one of these vouchers, and these days they're digital, not paper, what the string that you attach to it, so a string. If you're over 62, the voucher is funded by Section 202. If you're under 62, if you're 18 to 61, and you're disabled, they may attach a string funding called Section 811 to it. If it's a mainstream voucher, it means that you don't have any fundamental problems. It's just an ordinary voucher. And we can actually add around 138 different types of strings. So contention on the problems you're having and what's going on can make this voucher turn into many different things. But a voucher is always a voucher. What you got is no frills, no extras. You got the basic hardcore plain voucher. No special. You got no rims on there. You got no additives, nothing. All right. So the check. If you, the landlord, is on camera saying you were trying to figure out ways to put a person out, is that discrimination? Yeah, it is, and it's also a form of harassment. And if you've got them on camera, you got their ass nailed to the carpet. There's no alleviation of that. And actually, I would move to have them put them in court. You don't look. If the landlord has the option to take you to court for an eviction, you have the option to take them to small claims court for about $50. Some states $150, and sue their ass. Show the judge the video and collect. When they don't want to pay, when the judge makes the order, then you get with a legal advocate that's free, and then they'll levy their paychecks, and then that'll allow you to walk in their house, unplug their fucking TV, and put it in your car, and anything else to pay the bill. Okay, that's called a mechanic's lien. Now that's an example of a mechanical lien, but you can't do it that way. But what I'm saying is you can start garnishing. And, other ways to do it would be to sell their home. And then, hey, honey, here's the change for your home. I cashed that $500 check. I was going to let you know the house went for really low. We sold at half the price. Here's the change. So that's an example. You need a good attorney for that. But, yeah. Moving on. God's child. Okay. Here in DFW, which is Dallas-Fort Worth, so you're a neighbor of mine. I'm out in Houston. Our voucher amounts increase automatically annually with FMRs increases. Okay. Depending on many different zip codes, the DHA just covers throughout the. Okay. So you're talking about rent reasonableness and fair market rents. Yeah, you're true. In fact, God's child, I keep calling you child's God or. So FMRs, fair market rents, as you know, they're all issued by HUD. I actually help landlords with that because when they invest in properties and want to deal with Section 8 tenants, I always tell them it's probably preferable to look at the rents per zip code and buy in the proper zip code so you get the best amount of money for the voucher holder. And it also works for the tenant that has a voucher. If you have a voucher and you're out there doing housing search, you would do you some justice to look at FMRs to see which areas actually have landlords that are more willing to deal with you. In other words, your voucher is worth a little bit more to the landlord in some areas than others. Moving on. So this person named The Check has commented, it's on a comp's video camera. Well, that's pretty damning evidence. So I'd say that you would probably need to subpoena that. So opening up the $50 to $150 small claims court to sue, and then you would probably want to pay the extra 50 to have the cop in his video there, and then you'd probably nail it. There might even be a few attorneys that'd be willing to deal with it if they feel the landlord has enough properties and assets to liquidate. Um, Moving on, tenant sub. How can I request bylaws saying family rooms are considered a bathroom? That's a first. How can you request bylaws saying family rooms are considered a bedroom? Well, first of all, I think that relieves the scope of federal, state, and county. What you're talking about is ordinance, okay? So city ordinances. And so states like California, when you ask for an extra bedroom, they'll show up with a lovely sheet, a bed sheet, and a box of tacks. Here's, honey, your living room just became a bedroom. Let me help you put up that sheet. There's nothing you can do about that. Certain cities are that way. And the housing authority, you asked for that combination. Don't be shocked when the worker shows up with a box of tacks and a sheet. Congratulations, we just turned your living room that extra bedroom. Aren't you excited? Here, let's have a party and pop some champagne you have in your room. It sucks, but that's how it goes. And California is one of the worst states. They're pretty egregious about that. New York and certain areas do it as well. Look, you show up to my house with a sheet and a box of tacks, I'm going to invite you to fuck out my lawn. We're not playing that. I'll just let you know. If you're in California and New York, that could be a very real possibility. As far as bylaws, my friend, I would say that you would want to go to Cornell Law, cornelllaw.com. But yes, we have a no tack and sheet policy. You show up, I'm going to put you out my home. Okay, so moving on. Tennis Sab says California. I knew I was right. Didn't even need you to. I already knew that before you even commented. All right. Via Riley. Can I file a report of harassment on my neighbor? Well, I don't know what the feds would actually do about that. That seems more of a city matter. I would say that now let's think about proper process. So proper process in this respect would be that let's pretend you had a job at Walmart and you decided, you know what, I'm going to complain, but I'm going to skip the assistant manager, the area manager, and I'm going to talk to the CEO. You don't want to do that. File the complaint first. Wait for the complex or the owner of the property to not respond. When they don't respond, that opens the door for you to step it up to the next level. There are about 5 different levels before it gets real serious. So I got to remind you, do not skip any steps. Beautiful Brown. Oh Lord, I'm in California. Yes, Beautiful Brown, you are in California. So you and look, if you got a small place, look, they might try to hang a sheet by your stove. Who knows? You'd be like George and Wheezy trying to move on up. So I hope y'all seen that post I made about that. For those of you who are old school, remember George and Wheezy of the Jeffersons, some of the old school series that we all enjoyed as kids, and when we were older. All right. So beautiful part of California I'm in. I'm actually not in California. I'm a resident of the state of Texas. But as you know, these are federal programs, and federal programs are in all 50 states. And when I have clients in all 50 states for the past 21 years, and I deal with around 700 to 1,000 clients a year and around 100 to 200 landlords a year. So I probably have visited every town, including small ones in America, and worked with clients. That's the thing, guys. Consulting work at the federal level, I don't just deal with people in my neighborhood, consult just in my neighborhood or in my zip code or in my county or in my state. I address all states. California represents probably 35% of my clients. New York represents about 35% in the rest of the nation. New Jersey, Massachusetts represent a big portion too. So yeah, California especially, because y'all got nothing left out there. The housing is nuts. So. Tennis Sub says in Cinder Valley, awesome. Beautiful brown, lapping, not the sheet not sheet by the stove, of course. And then they hang the sheet by the stove, and they come back later for a housing quality inspection and violate you for it. Well, did you know that we're going to have to put you out the program because you hung the sheet in the wrong spot? Contradictory, isn't it? They like me to create an incident that's a violation of city ordinance by hanging sheets everywhere. Look, this ain't the Klan, baby. We don't do sheets here. Just tell them that. We don't do sheets. All right, guys, yes, the Jeffersons, 1970, my birth year. Excellent. I think that Jeffersons, what was that other series, the Bunkers? Archie Bunker and his racist butt. Yeah, it was the Jeffersons and the Bunkers back in the day, for those of you that have been around a minute. So those in the 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe a little bit of the 80s. So, yeah, we remember those days. That TV was was alive in those days. In my candy, I turn in paperwork for public housing. I hope I get it. God, I hope you do too. It's summertime's a tough time for this stuff. So it's crazy. But you know what, guys? The closer we get to September, I know we just started summer, but the neat thing about summer is it only lasts 3-4 months. And then we get in that beautiful part of the season, September, October, and then it's like the holidays. Amazing time. A lot of you guys right now struggling with housing are not going to be struggling as bad when September gets here. In fact, we do an incredible amount of business between September and March. That's when you guys, a lot of you should be doing this. Or you should be preparing now in anticipation of September, because it's a great time of the season to do it. But I realize with discrimination, harassment, and other issues, there's no good time of the season. A shitty landlord is just that. You can't. There's no holiday with those people. They just do what they do, and they're hoping you're not smart enough to actually match the plot and the course of what they're doing. And having a record, understanding, and attaching the specific regulations at the federal level and state level in your complaints, and keeping it not about how you feel. The facts are not ever based on your emotional state. It should be based on the facts of what's happening in your case, and filing these 903s. And there are other forms you can file. HUD's an expansive service. And the problem with Google is Google keeps pushing everybody over to FHEO. That they're not going to absolve all your problems. Now, I've got a few people that do a lot of research, but yeah. So one thing I'm going to do is go back to some of the complaint aspects of this. Let's see here. Because we got way off course, didn't we? We're talking about discrimination. One thing I was going to tell you guys, if you're having a problem with filings, you guys should reach out to me and email me. I won't charge you. I'll try to help you with your filing. But just understand this. I'm not going to do your casework for you, okay? If you're having trouble reaching out to the right people, I'm happy to help you briefly with that, okay? But we can't get in a situation where we're going a month-long emailing thousands of times. Because my goal is obviously to help people, Look, knowledge is a weapon. And this program has been weaponized so long against the people. It's time that we weaponize by educating ourselves on the proper methods in which to get these folks to comply with federal law. And you understanding those regulations and how to file is going to help you weaponize yourself. Look, this was designed to help people get housing. Now it's de-evolved into a big game. It's a game where a lot of people are getting away with shit, and people that have vouchers feel that if they rock the boat, that they're going to lose their voucher and other things. It's called blackmail almost, right? That's implied threats of blackmail. So learning how to weaponize your case, use it against these people, and to get rid of bad apples. That's a big part of the job. If it means turning the whole office against itself, even at the housing authority. Look, let me tell you something you don't understand. You got executive level people that work at housing authorities. These are people that get the big dolls, sit in the back, can't be bothered, and don't answer phones. Then you got all the people that answer the phones that you can't stand, right? You got the low end ones, which are your specialists, supportability specialists, so on. If they go and do something that's a violation of federal law and other issues, or refuse to help you with your case, or discrimination and harassment, then you can turn the office against itself. Because once you start filing at the federal level, what happens is Nancy in the back office with her chandelier and champagne that can't be bothered, the head of the housing authority, she has to make a decision. Does she want to have her investigated and her to retire early, or does she send Sally answering the phone, Miss Sally at the phone talking shit to everybody? Does she fire her? So part of the technique of dealing with this is understanding that you can throw employees under the bus and turn the fucking office against itself. And in the meantime, it would be better to just give the client, the complainant, what they need and absolve the problem than to be further investigated. If they've done this shit once, they've done it more than once. Do you really think the housing authority wants the feds in their office reading through everything they've done online? Because the devil always repeats its act. You see my point? Media packets are a beautiful deal. You've been discriminated against. A media packet costs anywhere from $100 to several $100. How about we take the story and we hit every news agency to 100 miles? How long will it take me putting my boot on that person's neck before they stop breathing? How much pressure do you have to apply to a fucking housing authority? Now, let's not talk about just housing. How long can that landlord with my boot on his neck before he stops breathing? How much pressure can you put on that man? And a lot of you guys don't realize a lot of these properties are owned by investors. You think it's just the landlord? It's actually investors. How long before I turn that investment bad? How long before I expose all those things? And when the news agencies come running, then your reputation is ruined. You've got a bad investment. There are other implications as well. So how long? And for you ladies, how long can they stand there with a high heel on their neck? If you understand where to apply pressure in these areas, what happens is it'd be simpler just to give you what you need to do and resolve the situation that can continue. So there's increased amounts of pressure. Filing some little old report with FHEO will get you something. It'll get you a prize at the circus. But if you really want to apply pressure to these people and send them truly under the city bus, the federal bus, then you've got to keep escalating it so they understand that you're fully apprised of your rights and that you have the capacity to see this through if it means at the detriment of the property, the value of the property, or even losing their ability to accept vouchers anymore or being investigated, okay? A lot of you guys don't understand that one part of that pressure is small claims. Look, you might not have much money. Maybe you're on a fixed income, but a crispy $50 bill and about a $3 on a damn bus, you drive your ass downtown, you go to that court and you invite them to court. When they don't show, you get a default judgment. A lot of them think that's a joke. They don't even show up. You get that default judgment. Then you're talking. Then you can take them back to court and then try to go after punitive damages against them. The more you do that, the more you can put a lien on their property. So while they're property. Now, but small claims court, don't miss that. Starts subpoenaing the hell out of everybody. What else you got to do? You got no money. You're watching the Jeffersons, right? You own a fixed income. You're bored. You're staring out the window, minding everybody else's business. Spend your time in that courtroom. Get yourself busy. Get your mind active. Send their ass to the courtroom. Get your evidence together. Start videotaping. Now, I'm not suggesting everybody's broke and bored, all right? I'm just trying to be funny. But, that's the thing. You guys could be building amazing cases while you got nothing to do. All right. Boy, I tell you what, Beautiful Brown, she's like a shotgun on the live comments today. She's got about 10 comments here. Shirley Griffin, thank you for sharing. I have no questions from the Ozark. All right, Ms. Griffin, it was good to see you from the Ozarks. I was down there back in January. That was quite an experience. Regina Thomas, I met they are one person, one unit, and for 2 bedrooms, two bathrooms. All right. In my candy, right, Jay. Beautiful Brown goes on, I'm stuck pending on the waiting lists. In my candy goes on to say this rent increase to low income is awful. It truly is. Beautiful Brown says, I met 3 out of 4 of the categories. That's excellent news. Tana Saab, the housing in the city, 2 years went on to court. They were doing stuff. The husband and wife, they Change the name and they still run it. Oh Lord, that doesn't sound good. The city courts didn't do nothing to them. Building those cases, a lot of cases just failed because you guys are not putting up that adequate evidence. Beautiful Brown's laughing at me. God's child laughing. Look, just like you guys, you get bored. You're watching QVC. I don't ever get bored. I'm always busy. But you know what? I'm like any human. I think of cruel and ridiculous ways to make life a hell for not my clients, but the people they have problems with. So you have to get creative. Like I said, there's lots of ways to put a bag over somebody's head and strangle them. Now, I'm not suggesting you really do that, but I think you see the point. You apply enough pressure in a situation, they'll collapse, and they're not used to that. Most of the people go quietly in the night. You see what I'm saying? They go quietly in the night. They accept the no. They allow to be terrorized and harassed, and they never do that much. When you start stacking the deck against them, and then you start making that landlord can't sleep at night, he's fidgeting in that bed, and you can't figure out what you're doing next, that's right where you want him. Now, I represent both landlords and tenants. Clearly, I have landlords that call me and have the same problem in retrospect, being harassed by the tenant. So I represent each side, but I will never, ever, as a consultant, represent either party to the detriment because people are just playing games. If I really truly discover you're a bad tenant, then I'll just drop your case, give your money back, because I'm not going to arm a con artist. If you're a slumlord and you're doing the wrong thing, and I find it out, I'll give your money back and then let you wither away as the person sues the hell out of you. I'm not going to help people that are out there doing the wrong thing. I've had several people contact me. They wanted revenge, and others want to do different things. I'm not going to engage in that behavior. If there's a case there, then it's supported. That's fine. But if you're just a little con artist and you're lying and you're playing games, then I'm not gonna engage in that type of behavior. Pressure should be applied when required, and if it's legal to do so. And again, I'm not an attorney, but I certainly talk with enough of them. That's why I laughed. One lady told me when she was upset with my service, I'm gonna sue you. I was like, honey, I got a list of lawyers. You'd like to call a few of them because I have so much contact with attorneys through the daily course of my business that you would probably be facing off with 100 of them. Any one of them I could call that probably help me for free, considering what I do for a living. So, all right. Well, you know what, guys? This has been a long-winded one. Look, if you're struggling with this, you can't figure it out, reach out to me. I will try to do, at the very minimum, try to help you in that respect. If you have a complicated case, that's going to require contacting first the appropriate authorities, the HUD, FHEO. If that doesn't work out for you, then an attorney. If your checkbook ain't that big, I'm a better solution for it. If you're super cheap, you can do legal aid. But those children just got their little certificate for their law degree, and the most they got is a letterhead and a demand letter. So you have to make a decision. So I've had a lot of practice with this, and most cases do absolve. Now there is about a 4% ratio where it doesn't go well, but that's life. It doesn't mean every day you're going to get a lollipop. I don't always produce rainbows and unicorns. Sometimes cases fail. That's just what it is. If we lived in a perfect world, then I would have a perfect reputation. And these days, when I see nothing but 5 stars and there's no bad stars and there's no low ratings, then you're dealing with a con artist. Okay? Simple as that. I don't know any business with a perfect reputation. Even people that I work with will talk shit about me in reviews. They may not leave a 1 star, but that's just the reality of it. What do you think happens when 40% of your clients suffer from mental health issues? Of course, somebody's going to think that I just came from Mars and I'm trying to rip them off. That's all right. I'm used to dealing. Look, I have a fantastic group of clients that's schizophrenic, bipolar. Hell, I had one last week that was multiple personalities. You roll with the punches. If I don't represent these people in my capacity, then who would? Most consultants don't want to put up with the nonsense. At least I try to work with those clients, and I just tell them, look, if you're on your second personality today, hang up the phone, call me in a day or two, let me know when Bob is back in town, and then we'll talk. If you're flipping out and you're neurotic today and the schizophrenia is at its peak, wait till you've had some rest, then call my office, and then we'll discuss it in between that 15 minutes of reality that you have. I'm willing to work with clients even when I know that they suffer from delusion, to a certain degree. You cannot purchase services if you're having a delusional moment. Okay, and I will not. Don't call me don't call me from the psychiatric unit. I don't take patients. Okay, but I'm pretty good about that stuff. So I understand people have desperate situations, need help, and if we're not willing to help everybody equally, then I'm discriminating. You see, so you're in for a penny, you're in for a pound. Well, guys, I've enjoyed talking with you. I think today I need to get back to work because certain people are itching for me to get their casework done. We offer a number of services, and I'll just go over them real quick, okay? And I'm going to put up some links. Here we go. So I'm going to give you information, appointments, prices, and a website. If I can just get copy and paste. All right, I'm copy and pasting here in live chat. This information is also in the bottom of the video. One thing I tell you is you can check out our documentation, Secretary of State files, EIN, DBAs, everything. We have all our documents present. Any work that we do for clients or a contractual agreement, I do require identification for all clients. With the contractual agreements, e-sign. You can check out our reviews on Google. You can check them out on Setmore. I think we're over 200. Okay. Read the reviews. Look, everybody knows when businesses buy fake reviews. They're always articulating these perfect little paragraphs and nothing but fabulous things to say. Look, you read the reviews for my company, people say all kinds of weird shit. That's how you know they're real, anyways. I'm certainly not going to buy them because people tell you all kinds of things. I had one lady, she called me, she gave me 5 stars and said her cat was doing good. That's how you know a real company from one that's buying those damn reviews out of Russia and China. So do your due diligence. Make sure. Our company doesn't have any investigations, holes, liens, judgments, and has never been approached by HUD or the feds for any deceptive or fraudulent activities. That's why we do contractual agreements. That's why we're listed the way we're listed. And I've been around 10 years on YouTube, 21 in total. And I've got a lot of working experience between clients. But I just want to make sure everybody understands I don't offer mental health therapy. I'm not a psychiatrist. So please make sure you're in the best state of mind when you contact me, that you're thinking in equitable terms, and that you're able to stick to the facts. In order to help you guys with discrimination or even get vouchers or housing, I don't need to know an entire history. That's irrelevant to really the factor of how quickly and whether or not you're going to get them. They're just base factors that I need to know. So that's why I always say an hour conversation is not even worth the time. I can learn everything I need in about 20 minutes and to figure out whether or not you actually got a case that would work. And from there, we decide whether or not you need to hire me or somebody else. I turn away cases all the time. I only accept 3, possibly 4 in a day, and I'm only open 3 days a week. So when I do work for people, I'm focusing on you. And you have contact with me by phone. In other words, you call me when you want. Most people buy service these days. You're lucky if you get a response. It's only by email, and so maybe once every 3rd day or every 2 weeks. Clients can call me during certain hours, and I call them back. So you have a dialogue with me, and it's helpful. Adjust the stress levels you have, especially when you're able to vent your ideas and your concepts against the work that we're doing for you. Kind of alleviates that pressure you're having. So that being said, I've enjoyed having all of you here. I hope you've learned a little bit. If you haven't, leave me a thumbs down. Go down there and leave me a nasty review. I love nasty reviews. It helps keep it real. We don't have enough nasty reviews. If you're having a bad day and you really want to get evil, and you want to feel better, you can always leave my company a nasty review. We're all for that because I don't give a damn about reviews. You can say whatever you want. It won't bother me. I'm not going to lose my mind over reviews, okay? Hopefully they're honest. All right, guys, I've enjoyed talking with you all. Have a good day, all right? Bye-bye.